Welcome to another edition of the M365 Show. And today, my guest is someone deeply embedded in the Microsoft 360 developer ecosystem, Gautam Seth, and all the people. You can correct me after. All the people like I spell their names wrong, but he's a full stack developer. He is a 5-time MVP, a core contributor to the Microsoft 365 PnP community, and helps uh, mainly widely used tools like PnP PowerShell, PnP.net, and I'm really interested in the last part. He's also passionate about open source, developer communities, sharing knowledge, and lately has been deep diving into the world of agentic AI, Copilot extensions, and all this stuff. So in this episode, we will explore Microsoft 365 developments, the future of Copilot, open source collaborations, how AI reshaping the way developer build products today. Gautam, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Mirko, thanks a lot for having me. How are you?
Yeah, all fine. Thank you for the question. Uh, that's amazing. You are a 5-time MVP and yeah, a core member at the PnP team and yeah, heavily involved in the C65 developer ecosystem. How would you describe your journey into the Microsoft space?
Um, okay, that's okay. It seems like a long time ago that I started my career. My I started my career primarily into the old school SharePoint server side development side of the things, and gradually moved towards SharePoint Online and SPFX and the M365 development stack. My journey primarily was starting as a SharePoint developer, moving towards a SharePoint consultant, and then also working at Valo, and then staff base as a Microsoft 365 developer. And currently, I work at Solutions to Share. It's a, Germany based company, and I work here as a full stack developer, focusing on the M365 development side of the things. So yeah.
Yeah, I see in your profile you are really big part in the I call it open source community. Uh, and now we have Microsoft more than enclosed system. What think you or how is the contribution to the community, especially in the open source world? Uh, how handle you this both? Yeah, systems or thinking of how a company should run.
Mm. Yeah, so I primarily focus on SharePoint. The issue started around SharePoint PowerShell in the Microsoft 365 world. So what used to happen is that Microsoft has this SharePoint Online PowerShell, and that was a lot more focused on SharePoint admin side of the things. So one of uh, did I understand the question correctly, Mirko?
Yeah,
How
what how did you see these both worlds, a closed ecosystem from Microsoft and the open source world?
Yeah. The issue with okay. So what used to happen is most of the developers, Microsoft provides their own first party PowerShell, which is called SharePoint Online PowerShell, and that is primarily focused on the SharePoint admin side of the things. So the PnP PowerShell was created by Erwin von Hunen. He's a multiple times a Microsoft MVP, and he found this gap in SharePoint Online, and then Microsoft 365, basically, that if you want to do targeted operations against certain SharePoint artifacts such as site collection, lists, files, and all of those things, the Microsoft provided PowerShell was not super good enough, was not super targeted for that. So he created that, and what I did was I started adding my contributions towards that and improving the code. So we found some gaps in the Microsoft implementation and the offerings that were there, and we decided to like make this better for the whole ecosystem. So there are quite a few things Microsoft is doing that is open source, and of course there are quite a few things that are super closed source, such as SharePoint, PowerShell, and all those things. So yeah, it's an interesting gap that we are addressing via PnP PowerShell, and I think open source is like the future, and I think they should open source a lot more parts of the system, so that people can contribute to it more and understand it and develop things around that ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great. But for the people who may not know the PnP ecosystem deeply, what are the Microsoft 360 pattern and practice PnP, PowerShell, and especially the PnP .NET? Why are they so important for developers today?
Um, yeah, so PnP PowerShell and PnP .NET, they both address certain gaps into the Microsoft 365 uh, development side of the things. So PnP PowerShell is a collection of PowerShell commandlets that you can execute against SharePoint, and it addresses real gaps in that are present in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And same goes for PnP.NET as well. So there are quite a few PnP.NET library as well. Is It's more like an SDK and an opinionated SDK, which provides like a fluent implementation of certain graph endpoints. So both of them are quite interesting, and they address a certain gap in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem for the .NET stack. And yeah, I mean that's the PnP, as Microsoft Patterns and Practices. It's again, it's not just for .NET. We also have quite a few things outside of .NET, such as the M365 CLI, and quite a few other things as well, which are there. So VS Code extensions are there. Quite a lot of things are there in this community-driven initiative. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You are, yeah, it's really interesting, and you are also with your company deep dive into governance solution. But what excited you most about building MC63 5 platforms right now?
Mm, For me, I love working on uh, Copilot and Copilot extensibility nowadays, as well as using of the agentic AI workflows. So that kind of really excites me now, seeing how far the how far the agents have come up nowadays, especially because I remember when Copilot first launched, it was like I think it was a slightly better version of autocomplete, or sometimes hit and a miss, but now it does the whole end-to-end side of the thing. So it's really interesting, and that kind of excites me a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I like later a little bit of deep dive, especially in your experience in GitHub Copilot. But so I think a little bit about uh, you have a lot of experience, and if someone's starting with MC65 development, where should they focus first? Teams, SharePoint, or I don't know, Copilot, or PnP Graph API, or Copilot, or something else?
Wow, that's kind of a loaded question, but let's say if nowadays a lot of focus is on Copilot and Copilot extensibility, so that's where a lot of excitement and a lot of investments are happening, and that's also where a lot of things are being actively developed and created. So that is one of the things that they can focus on, and of course, SharePoint and Graph and Teams and all of them, they always form the core of all these experiences, right? So Copilot, I mean the M365 Copilot extensibility and everything around that is always built on the underlying platform, which is SharePoint, Teams, Loop, and Planner, and all those things which kind of power the whole M365 ecosystem. So obviously the base platform is important, but of course it also depends on what kind of development work you would want to do. So yeah.
Yeah, Loop. It's. I have so many talks about Loop. It's more for me. What's a side? Yeah, I don't know. This was something that OneNote you can use, but no one use it. But yeah, Loop is getting so important in the last few months. But uh, another thing, I think a little bit about, yeah, about your career and your view of things. Um, when we look a little bit back or from today, like I say 5 years or so, what major shift have you seen? How organization approach Microsoft 365 customization and accessibility?
Yeah, I've seen quite a major shift in that area. So, I mean, how I see here is that earlier we all had SharePoint server object model, then we moved towards a lot more client side. We have SharePoint framework, which is super actively used by a lot of organizations around the world. And now we also have Teams app development. We also have a
Mm,
lot of Copilot extensibility happening as well around this area. So, there has been quite a shift from SharePoint focus towards a lot more focus on things around Teams app as well as Copilot extensibility around that. And yeah, yeah. So I mean, organizations are actively looking into moving major things away from SharePoint towards more focus on Teams or Copilot around that. So yeah, that's an interesting shift that happened. Yeah.
especially in your work, I think one thing must be really important. That's the Microsoft Graph API. What can you tell us about the Microsoft Graph API and what will happen in the future with the graph?
Yeah, Grass API, as we all know, is kind of like the heart and soul of the ecosystem, powering basically every experiences. So, it is also an interesting API built by different developers and developer teams inside Microsoft who have their own opinions around how to develop things, and some of them are not super well implemented, some of them are super well implemented. And I think it will kind of evolve. And now with the agentic AI happening, I think we should see a lot more investment, more away from graph itself and more towards agents and agentic API kind of the things, agentic extensibility, or those kind of things is what I think might happen going forward in the couple of years, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit before I got in these interviews, I scrape a little bit profiles and I see you helped maintain major open source tools with thousands of developers worldwide. What do maintain projects like PnP PowerShell actually look like behind the scenes? So you can give us some tips or the background information.
Hey, I don't do anything. I just delegate it to the agents nowadays. uh, no, but yeah, jokes aside, yeah, it often takes a quite interesting effort to help maintain these libraries because they're super widely used, and anything or any change that we make, it impacts a lot of users as well as developers who are using these um, SDKs and PowerShell and uh, provisioning engine. So usually what happens is we often, because most of our people who use the tools are developers themselves. So quite a lot of times they often are able to reproduce certain issues super well. So that often helps us, and we look into certain issues and we are able to fix it. So again, all of these are all things that we do outside of our active job. So I like working on those things, spending some time on those repositories outside of work hours, volunteering some time on certain issues, answering some questions, or if there is some discussions, answer or provide some inputs around those discussions or those things. So yeah, it often takes a lot of time, but also I like spending that time, right? So because I'm like a kind of a geek kind of person, right? So after work, what should I do? Maybe spend some time, look into certain issues, maybe help someone, figure
Yeah,
out some things and those kind of things. So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds you have no family.
Yeah. uh,
How do you balance community contribution, feature request, governance, and managing the quality in your open source projects? I think that's really interesting.
again delegate it all to agents. uh, but we would highly encourage people to contribute. We often receive a lot of contributions from new people from time to time. It's really encouraging as well. So often, most of them, when it comes to so from my side of the things, I usually help maintain PowerShell and a bit around uh, provisioning engine and some around .NET, PnP .NET libraries. So usually, what happens is someone raises an issue that they're running into in their day-to-day life. So most of them are developers. They execute certain things in their own organizations against certain Microsoft 365 workloads using the PnP tools. And sometimes they run into some issues, or sometimes they notice some gap that they wanted fixed, or they, for example, they want some feature that they want to implement, right? So they raise that particular request on GitHub, and we often look into that and try to implement it and see how that helps them plug that gap or help them in their own day-to-day life. So usually that's how it works. Often we also receive pull requests from certain people because they obviously know how to uh, the whole code is all open source, so they can peek into the code, see what needs to be changed, and they raise the pull requests. So we review them usually against our own standards, or use some common sense around that. And if it looks good enough, we often
So
merge that pull request around that. So yeah.
yeah, my next question is definitely how have you ever been a community contribution or pull request that surprised you in a I'd say surprised you in a positive or negative way that was where you say this was a awesome request.
Yeah, oftentimes we often have those kind of things. Sometimes some scenarios are there which we maintain the code, so we know quite a lot of things around that code. But sometimes people there are people notice some really obvious gaps or some really obvious errors, and then you realize that, oh wow, that's how they can do it. For example, in PnP PowerShell we have a way to provision teams, and I think someone raised a pull request around education teams or classroom, how to provision teams inside education tenants and those kind of things. And sometimes we even don't realize that this was a gap, and then we are often pleasantly surprised, like wow, that's an interesting pull request. And yeah.
Yeah, you have often say now. I think AI do a lot of my job, and yeah, I think yeah. I'm also do it nearly with AI, but you especially in the way also governance and compliance, and then I don't know. I use Cloud Code for example, build an app, and then I ask, is it secure? And says, ah no, and then you get all these threads you have to handle, and then you ask the next tool, I don't know, Gemini or something, and it says, oh no, that's also not secure. So did you think really AI is could be the one thing to handle, or did we need developers in the future? They understand the process and how it works and the deep dive.
Hmm. Interesting question about our own futures. But yeah, I think developers will be needed because they might be the case that there might be fewer developers needed, or maybe fewer people who might be involved in developing stuff. But I think the base knowledge around certain languages, certain gut instincts, often helps in certain scenarios, because AI is really good. I mean, has evolved a lot. It has, I mean, we've seen a lot of at least on, I mean, at least on Twitter and somewhere else, I see a lot of people writing like million lines of code in like a week and all of those things, right? So that is really impressive. But also impressive would be like, is it actually working? There are some scenarios where AI will obviously miss some things, and that's where the developer instinct or the gut knowledge should kick in, and that's where it needs that 2% push. Maybe AI will be able to do like 98% of the work, but maybe in some scenarios, 2%, that's where the developer will kick in. That's how I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I prepared for this discussion, and there's one word I never have seen before. It's the PnP.NET. Can you a little bit tell about this?
Yeah, PnP.NET is an SDK. It's a graph first SDK that is there, and it's also a fluent wrapper around the Graph API. So it is really interesting. It addresses certain graph
Mm.
Microsoft 365 workloads such as SharePoint sites, Teams provisioning and creation and updates, as well as uh, dealing with files as well. And secondly, it is also really interesting around how we handle uh, throttling. So if you want to use it in large volume scenarios, that's how as well we really handle it well in PnP.NET. So if you want to make requests against Microsoft Graph, PnP.NET and the PnP.NET SDK might come into the picture and help you out address some gaps. So that's where PnP.NET is. Yeah.
This is really interesting. And what are the biggest advantage of using the PnP libraries instead of working directly with the Graph API?
So yeah, Graphs API, PHP.NET is like, as I told you, it's kind of a wrapper around the Graphs API. So one of the advantages is that we provide like a fluent API to interact with Microsoft Graphs. Secondly, we really handle the uh, throttling scenarios really well. So it's so graph, as you know, if you execute a lot of requests, think of it like millions of requests you want to make against certain graph endpoints, you will obviously run into throttling because graph will throttle your requests. So you need to handle those kind of scenarios. So that's where PnP.NET SDK and PnP PowerShell, both of them will come into the picture. We handle it for you and ensure that your requests are gracefully handled. And if you run into an actual scenario, we provide an error around those things and how you want to deal with that. It is also providing a lot of configuration options around the throttling. For example, in SharePoint, we have this rate limit, and when you are reaching certain rate limit, uh, we have a quota. So if you reach like 90% of the quota, then we start slowing down those requests and all of that. But if you want to slow it down around 180% and those kind of things, you want to configure how you want your application to execute in certain scenarios. That's where PnP SDK will come in. Yeah.
I don't know if you have seen the Wolf of Wall Street movie. There's one famous scene it's a meme. It's like sell me this pen.
Mhm.
Uh, when you sell me PnP.NET, what how should you do it? Why should I use it? Why should I get it? Okay, it's free, but how should I get it? Why?
Yeah, Fluent API wrapper, better throttling, and error handling scenarios. That's how. Yeah,
Ah,
compared to the first party harness. Yeah, yeah.
what did you think? How has the move toward cloud first API and API first development influence the evolving of PnP tooling?
Hmm. Mm. I think it evolved mainly. See, earlier it used to target the three on-prem scenarios, three on-prem plus SharePoint Online. So we used to support SharePoint 2013, 2016, 2019 maybe, and I think of course SharePoint Online. And then nowadays we rarely see any people. I mean, we have seen so few requests around SharePoint on-prem. So that's how it evolved. So like, as a lot of things are obviously all cloud first, they will never be delivered to the on-prem side of the things. And the graph, as you know, is always going to be on Microsoft 365. It's never going to be on on-prem side of the things. So that's how the evolution of the SDK has happened. So earlier it used to target uh, on-prem plus cloud, and then it's now mostly cloud first. It's always going to be cloud first now. Yeah.
Um, let's jump a little bit more security topic. How important is authentication design today when building enterprise ready automation with PnP?
Can you come again? Sorry.
Yeah, no, no problem. What did you think? How important is authentication design today when build enterprise-ready automation with PnP?
Yeah, I think security is always the first and the foremost thing at the top of the mind. So in PnP, all we support any Entra ID that you have. So as long as see, as same goes with the uh, PnP.NET as well. As long as your app supports certain permissions, PnP.NET will work. So if there are certain scenarios where Entra ID is there and you are only allowed to specify certain permissions, but PnP.NET supports a lot more things. And in those scenarios, because your Entra ID doesn't have those permissions, the PnP will not work. So security is at the top of the mind, and we always respect the Entra ID
Mm,
permissions there. So
mm,
I think it's at the top of the mind, and whenever developer has to develop on top of PnP.NET or PnP PowerShell and all of that, they should always consider the least permissions that they might need to execute certain operations around PnP.NET or PnP PowerShell or Graphs API itself. So yeah, I think.
That's interesting. Um, I think a little bit about, is there misconceptions developer often have about the PnP PowerShell? What from
um,
perspective?
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is that PnP PowerShell is Microsoft developed. It is not. It is completely open source. It is not. It is completely open source. It is maintained by a team of maintainers who spend their time outside of work to help maintain these libraries. And again, it is not supported by Microsoft. It's so whenever you raise it, so oftentimes we often get some request by someone that hey, Microsoft support is telling us stories of request or some issues around PnP PowerShell. And oftentimes people do raise a request with Microsoft support that, hey, this thing is not working in PnP PowerShell. And then Microsoft support redirects it to us, and then we have to look into that. So often that's often a misconception that PnP PowerShell is developed by Microsoft and supported by Microsoft. It is not. So it is all completely community driven and helped and maintained by people in their free time. So yeah.
Mm, awesome. Um, we have this Copilot topic everywhere actually. How do you see PnP evolving along Microsoft Copilot and AI-driven workflows?
Mm. Yeah, interesting topic. We are actively looking into how we can integrate PowerShell, PnP PowerShell with the Agentic AI workflows. So we're looking into developing an MCP server around this. So whenever you want to make certain request around PnP PowerShell, this MCP server can kick in and help you out in certain scenarios with the certain prompts. We're also looking into working with how we can integrate certain skills or develop some skills around certain topics in PnP PowerShell. So I think that's how we plan to evolve. And of course, PnP PowerShell is based on .NET. So current version is .NET 8, and once it gets out of support, we plan to improve to .NET 10 as well. So that should bring in all the latest and greatest from the .NET itself, .NET runtime itself into the PnP PowerShell. And yeah, besides that, PnP PowerShell works really well from what I understand and what I've tested in Cloud Code or GitHub Copilot or uh, Codex and all of those things. They do understand PowerShell, PnP PowerShell really well, and they execute the commands and the scripts and all that because they understand the code. And again, it's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, you are currently deep dive into agentic AI development experience, especially with GitHub Copilot. What first pulled you into the space, or how did you major in this space?
Yeah, GitHub Copilot when it first came as it was a bit awkward. It was a bit okayish, but um, yeah, I think with time, whenever new models came in, I decided to start experimenting with them, building things on using those agents and all of that. Primarily, it started initially. It was a very little use, Then came, I think, GPT 3, Sonnet 3.5, I think, or 3.7, which was a really good model. And I think one of the first models that kind of, like, it was like a bulb kind of moment, bulb glow moment that kicked in. Wow, like this can be a start of really interesting things. So that's how I got pulled into that. And I think once new models came in, so current one of my favorite models nowadays is GPT 5.5. So yeah, that model is really really cool, and I really use it primarily all day, every day, for a lot of topics that we have in my current organization, as well as with PnP.net and PnP PowerShell as well. Yeah.
Awesome. There was, I don't know, there was this moment, Microsoft buy GitHub, and I think, oh, why they buy that? That's a stupid idea. And yeah, um, but I love GitHub. Okay, but and I think the first Copilot I ever met was the GitHub Copilot. Um, but there are, I think, some misconceptions what people think about the GitHub Copilot. How will you explain the GitHub Copilot?
Uh, yeah, GitHub Copilot is an agentic uh, AI platform. Let's put it that way, because so if we it's like a collection of things that you use with your development workflow. So GitHub Copilot has you can use it inside VS Code or VS Code. It is you can all GitHub Copilot is also like a platform for different AI models, like from different AI providers such as OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, and I think a couple more as well. So you can use it in any other uh, tools such as even open code as well. Secondly, it is also uh, there on the cloud. So if you have a GitHub repository and a GitHub Copilot subscription, you can point that agent towards certain things. For example, if someone raises an issue in a GitHub repository, you can just assign that issue to GitHub Copilot, and it will basically work on that issue, understand the issue, create PR around that issue, and it's a really interesting platform itself. Same goes with pull request. So if you have created a pull request, it will review that pull request itself. So it really helps you in your own development workflow, and it's like a complete platform of AI tools. Yeah.
Mm, uh, that's really interesting. So you say it's an agentic AI, but everybody talks about AI assistants. So how do you explain to the people what's the difference between an AI assistant and an agentic AI?
Uh, yeah, AI assistant. Think of it this way: there is a task for you. You give agentic AI and assistant. Think of it in those two terms. If there is a task, you give that task to uh, AI, for example, GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot will understand, make some changes. You do it yourself manually. You create the pull requests and test it out. All of that. That's kind of AI assisted workflow. Whereas agentic AI would be like the full end to end development life cycle around agentic AI. So you simply, if there is some issue, you assign that to AI. AI will create a new branch. It will work on that. It will test it out. It will create a pull request, and based on the permissions and all of that you assigned it, you might even be able to work it and test it out. So that's kind of like a difference. So agentic AI would be like a full end-to-end AI driven workflow, and AI assistance would be like human in the loop, and then assisting humans in development. So yeah.
That's really interesting. I think a little bit about the future from GitHub Copilot. What did you see? What's happened in the next few months? I know you are not allowed to permit it to tell all from the Microsoft event. I think last month. So yeah, but can you tell what you think? Not what you know from Microsoft.
uh, yeah, I think when you look at the industry trends as well, GitHub Copilot is changing a lot. It's going to yeah, from what I understand would be that it's going to become a bit more expensive, or from what it's, think of it this way, the end of the subsidy regime that we are kind of used to it, right? So they did provide a blog post. They are moving away from premium request to usage based kind of things. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting shift, because now we are all addicted to agentic AI and AI driven workflows, and then suddenly it becomes a lot more expensive. So now you have to really think around, where you want to point out the AI to certain things. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting future, because yeah, yeah.
Was there something mind shifting between, I say, building traditional apps and now building AI powered, AI driven uh, applications? Was there a change, or from your opinion, have you, or it's nearly the same but it's faster?
More, I mean, I would suggest, I would think in this terms that it is a lot faster, and it is also like fail fast, so the loop is a lot shorter for certain things. So if you want to develop an app, you just point it to AI, it will develop it. You are able to see it near real time in a few minutes, and then you are able to get it out or ship it out if you think it is good enough. So it allows a lot more flexibility, and shortens the timelines for development of certain things. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I find it so interesting. It's happening so much from low code to no code to vibe code. I don't know. There are so many buzzwords out there. Sometimes I think a little bit, oh, what's happened in this world? um, but when you can give a tip to a junior developer who start his career with GitHub Copilot, what will you uh, what tip can you give, or what advice?
Mm. Understand the tool and some models well, how they work. It's going to be like how you enter an industry, like you first learn how coding is, what coding is, you start learn those things, and then you start evolving and doing some things better, like an iterative feedback loop. So learn the tools, for example GitHub Copilot or Cloud Code or Codex, learn how they work. Secondly, use certain things, for example MCP server or uh, skills and whatnot that is available that you can use alongside those tools. So that's how you can evolve as a developer. And of course, something that will never change is the fundamentals of certain language. So if you are a front end developer, uh, it will always be better for, I mean, if you know the language, because you will be able to read code and understand code. So as a human, it is always important to understand the code, in my opinion, that so that you are responsible for the code that you are shipping, and you need to understand the code that you are shipping, right? So I mean, AI will help you for sure, like 98% times it will help you, but that 2% times, yeah, if you don't know the code, yeah, good luck with that. So
Uh, uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm the print hello world guy. Um, you have, from your company side, you have a strong knowledge about governance, especially in Teams and SharePoint. But how has governance changed in the Copilot area from your perspective? And yeah, how we can, I don't know, feel more safe, or how can company feel more safe, because there's a lot of, yeah, panic, and a lot of other people say they can nothing happen. What did you think?
Yeah, I think governance is and will always be an interesting and topic. So mainly like how developers in the organization are using AI, the data ingress as well as the output. I mean, how the data comes in, data comes out. Maybe do some auditing, do some logging around those side of the things. How developers are building those tools inside your organization. What data? I mean, what connections they are doing. For example, in low code scenarios, you build some things and that connects outside your M365 ecosystem. Maybe ensure that it is audited and logged and tracked somewhere. So same goes with AI, right? You need to ensure that your tools are compliant with your organization's policies, and then ensure that you also have the tools to track how these things are working. So that's how I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I'm a really lazy guy, and I often use Cloud Code or Perplexity or something. And for simple stuff like I don't know, there is a new I don't know for the podcast. There was well now you need also a 60 to 9 thumbnail to do square their thing, and I say, well, I'm too bored about it. And I say, let us develop an app. And for all these things, think you we are in an age where everybody should build like me an app for everything, or uh, is there also a space for enterprise solutions?
Yes, enterprise solutions will always be there. I think enterprises need certain things, for example, reliability, availability, observability of some things. So I think that's where enterprise solutions will evolve. Yeah. Uh, Maybe did I get it right, Mirko? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm full on your side. It will be more a fun question, but uh, from your personal view, um, how has AI changed your way for personally code, debugging, or prototype solutions?
Yep. Closing the loop faster, fixing the issues faster, making more errors, understanding those errors as well better. I think oftentimes there are some things I used to do earlier, for example, Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange and all of them. Now we have living assistant inside our own development environment. So that has helped quite a lot oftentimes. And uh, I'm slightly a bit on the edge because oftentimes when I was a junior developer, I would often reach out to my seniors or someone in the team, like, "Hey, help me out with this sort of things." Nowadays, that has shifted because everyone has AI. So people usually first go there, and then probably if they need someone, then they reach out to a senior developer and that kind of thing. So that kind of evolution seems to have happened, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think we are it's all the things are so rapidly changed, and I think I don't know I feel nearly every hour when you look on LinkedIn, Microsoft has something new like uh Copilot notebooks, Copilot skills, worker IQ, and so on. I, I'm a little bit overwhelmed sometimes, and I think, oh, what could be interesting, what's not so interesting for me. But how do you continue learning and yeah, not feel overwhelmed in a such rapid changing ecosystem?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah, that's a fair ask. I mean, it's also the sign of things to happen, right? Twitterification of our everyday lives. But yeah, I think it it kind of depends on the individual as well. For example, if you're interested in certain topics, maybe just keep a track of the people who are like super involved in those topics, follow them maybe, and see certain blogs around those areas, follow Microsoft topics around that area. And I think maybe scooping your attention to certain things should help, because a lot of things happen in a lot of areas, and not everything we need to know. For example, I don't need to know Copilot notebook. I'm happy with knowing Copilot, GitHub Copilot. So I mean, think in those terms, right? It's going to be an overwhelming future for sure. So it's really important where we focus our attention on. Yeah.
Mm, okay, then we have the rapid fire round.
Okay.
So I ask a question and you give a short answer. What do you think about your favorite developer tool right now?
Cloud code.
Or one Microsoft technology more developers should pay attention to?
Copilot CLI.
Tabs or space?
Tabs.
Most underrated skill for developers.
Debugging.
One AI prediction you stay strongly believe in.
AI will eat software.
Your favorite Finnish dish.
Uh, oh, wow. I don't know. Hot chocolate would be.
Coffee, tea, coffee, tea, or energy drinks during the coding sessions.
Water.
Oh, yeah, oh yeah, that's off an option I heard often. So,
Sorry.
best way to learn documentation, videos, or building projects.
Documentation.
A dream project you love to build someday.
Uh, video something. Video translator kind of thing. Yeah.
And where can people follow your work and connect with you online?
LinkedIn and Twitter. X. Yeah.
So all the links and their personal profile is shared in the show notes, so the people can check it out. So then my last question is this is the same question I have asked, but what is the one thing our developers should take from this session today?
Learn AI, AI, agentic AI, AI assisted development, be proficient. That's the future. Language fundamentals are important. So pick a particular language set, for example, Node.js stack or C Sharp, ASP.NET stack or something. Be proficient in one of them and use AI to the fullest. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So Gautam, this was a great session. Thank you so much. This was really interesting, especially in the PnP world. So thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Mirko. Thank you for having me. Bye.